just how do you disarm a narcissistic person? It's a lot easier said than done, as some narcissistic people, as soon as you try to neutralize them, they are going to go nuclear on you. So with some narcissistic people, the only way to go is no contact. With others, you might have that choice taken away from you, such as court orders, in which case you need to go limited contact and grey rock. If possible, get all communication via a third party. If that's not possible, it needs to be limited contact and grey rock. And wherever you are in their life, they are going to try and get something from you. So learn to know your enemy so that you know their games, you know their pattern of behaviour. They can no longer take you by surprise because you understand exactly what they're doing or exactly what they're trying to do. You understand exactly what they want from you, exactly what they're trying to gain from you, and no longer give it to them. You might have a narcissistic person in a friendship group where you're going to lose an awful lot of friends who are genuine and decent people by either walking away from the narcissist or calling the narcissistic person out. It might be a distant family member that you just see now and again at events, family occasions. Now, these are a little easier to disarm because you don't have to go home with them. You don't have to deal with them. Those that you have to live with, you have to be extremely careful around, as they lack the empathy to care. Therefore, if they believe that you've criticised them in some way, this triggers a narcissistic injury, which can trigger narcissistic rage, and they seek to punish you. So sometimes you do have to, unfortunately, play the long game until you can get into a safer environment. So one of the first things is to know the narcissist, know their patterns of behaviour, know the terminology so that you understand what they are doing and why they are doing it. And then the second thing is to know yourself so that they can no longer use you against yourself. Narcissistic people have a knack of making things very personal. They have a knack of personally attacking you to the point where you're going to naturally take it personally, because they're the things where they're going to get the reaction, the desired outcome, the desired reaction that they want from you. So by knowing yourself so well, they can no longer use you against yourself. Understand that narcissistic people are not team players. They're not looking to get along. They're not looking to help. They're not looking to see you do well. They're not looking to work together. They might manipulate it to look like they're a team player. They might manipulate it by offering that compromise, only it's just temporarily done in order to gain something from you. Narcissistic people are not team players. They never have been and they never will be. They're manipulators who pretend to be team players to exploit people. They feel entitled. They don't like the word no, and they are going to push and push and push however they can until they get what they want. And they enjoy being right. They have to be right. They need to be right. You can go into a debate with a narcissistic person to try and prove them wrong. However, they're not going to be proved wrong. They're either going to humiliate you, shame you, blame you, try and prove you wrong, or punish you and hurt you for disrespecting them being right. Narcissistic people get triggered quite easily. We can all be triggered. We can all have emotions such as anger and rage. There are those of us that can recognise why we could be angry at somebody, and those that can recognise why we're just having a bad day and we're just, don't speak to me today, I'm not in the mood. And those with the empathy who can stop to a degree unless they're being provoked by somebody to a point where they do lose it. And then they feel remorseful and make it up to the person they lost it with. A narcissistic person doesn't take responsibility for their own anger. They blame other people. So one thing you can say to a narcissistic person is, your anger isn't my responsibility. And this is okay if you're in a friendship group and one of the friends is exploding out and blaming you and accusing you and trying to humiliate you and put all the blame onto you, just to say your anger's not my responsibility. That wasn't what I did, because they're looking for you to bow down and agree with them. However, if you're living with a narcissistic person who's going into a rage, saying this could potentially set them off even more. So you're actually best off just saying things such as, how can I help? Do you need space? What do you need? Narcissists seek that excessive attention and adoration and believe that they are special. So you can say things such as, let me go and think about it and recognise where you're coming from. I'm sorry if I've offended you. I'm sorry if I've hurt you. And it can be painstakingly annoying saying this to narcissistic people. However, sometimes you have got to weigh up the severity of the situation and keep yourself safe. And when you genuinely do care about them, which most people do, saying to them, how can I help? I'm sorry if I've offended you. Yes, narcissistic people say that to you. However, we have actually offended them. That's why they're having that narcissistic rage, because they felt criticism. It's unintentionally done. However, recognizing the things that trigger them helps limit how often we could potentially cause that narcissistic injury, which is why it's always a good idea to know your enemy. They do have feelings, most often negative, toxic feelings. However, they do have feelings. When they're coming at you and coming at you and coming at you because they want you to agree with them, yet you don't agree with them. Again, if it's at a family event or a friendship group, you can turn around and say things like, that's your opinion. I'm going to have to agree to disagree. It's not my opinion. I can see where you're coming from. However, I don't agree. Saying to a narcissistic person that you have to live with, who always has to be right, that you don't agree with them, being disagreeable, is going to potentially put you in danger. Narcissistic people have you living in fear and walking on eggshells. So you can't go from 1 minute fawning to their behaviour to the next minute saying, I see your point of view, however I'm sticking with my own, because it's going to enrage them. So this is when you could be better off neutralizing the situation by saying something along the lines of, I hear you, I just need some time to get my head around it, because I hear what you're saying, but I'm not on the same lines as you at the moment. So I just need to try and understand it more from your point of view. Could you explain it to me more, please? Because then a narcissistic person feels flattered that you want to listen to how they're right, even if they're wrong. So sometimes you're just going to have to bite your lip, sit down, bite your lip, bite your tongue, sit down and listen to what they've got to say and take it as a learning curve to know your enemy. Don't take whatever they're saying to you personally. Listen to them. The more you stop defending and explaining, and the more you start listening, the more information they give and the more you will learn. I'm sorry you feel that way. Again, family events with a group of friends, when they're attacking you, you can turn around and say, I'm sorry you feel that way. Yes, this is something that narcissistic people do say. It doesn't matter what other people think. You know what you're dealing with. When you live with them, saying I'm sorry you feel that way can offend them because you're not validating their feelings. You're not understanding them. You're not taking responsibility. When they're trying to guilt trip you, you're not taking responsibility. You're not taking ownership of the guilt that they're trying to push onto you. In that situation, you could be best just saying, I'm sorry. Could you explain more so that I can understand better? This is when a narcissistic person, usually because they don't have the explanation, because they're trying to guilt trip you, might just storm off and force silence on you. Or they might play the victim of how you never take their side. You never believe them. When they start gaslighting you, don't take their gaslighting on board. Recognise what they're doing. Which again, when you live with a narcissistic person and they are accusing you of things, in their mind they are things that you have done. So by saying, yes, that's possible, it kind of intervenes because you're not disagreeing, but you're not agreeing. You're just saying, you're half agreeing by saying that's possible. And with some narcissistic people, that can be enough to shut them down, because by you saying that's possible, they think you've agreed with them. However, that's possible is for you to think, well, yes, that's possible. And then in your own mind think, but that's not what happened. That's not what I'm feeling. Don't continue, don't explain that. Just say that's possible and explain to yourself, no, that's not how I'm feeling. No, that's not what I did. No, that didn't happen. Don't explain it to them. They're not team players. They're not looking for your opinion. They're looking to be right. This is when sometimes when they're coming at you and coming at you and coming at you, you just have to say, okay. You have to be careful what you're saying okay to, because if they're doing something where they're trying to break down a boundary of yours and you say okay, they class it as an agreement. Even if you just say, okay, I'll think about it, they class it as an agreement. And then they get offended when you don't agree. So saying okay when they're coming at you and accusing you of things, you can say things like, okay, I'll go and work on that. And you can go and work on that. You can sit down and think, right, this person's annoyed at me because I wouldn't do this for them. Is that the kind of person I am? Do I want to do that? No. Then, okay. I've worked through it. Narcissistic people won't work through anything. To them, it's all your fault. Of course, is another one. When a narcissist is accusing you of things, when they are trying to provoke you, when they're gaslighting you, just turning around and saying, of course, because to a narcissistic person who's not actually listening to you, by you saying, of course, they're getting that agreement that they desire from you. So I understand that helps validate the narcissist's feelings. Okay helps validate the narcissistic person's feelings. Of course helps validate the narcissistic person's feelings. And that's possible. It helps validate the narcissistic person's feelings without you readily agreeing to them being right. You don't want to take on board the opinion of somebody who is unwilling to take on board the opinions of others. When it comes to narcissistic people, the best way to disarm yourself is by having nothing to do with them. The best way to neutralize them is to recognize that they are seeking that validation and giving them that validation until you can find a safe way out without fawning to their behaviour. Very, very difficult to say no to those you cannot say no to, because they're going to punish you, which is why the way we say no is by going no contact and leaving them to go and live their life while we live ours, recognising that if we don't live life on their terms, we're hurting them. So instead, We'll leave them to go and live life on their terms, and we'll go and live life on our terms with those who we can communicate with and we can get along with. People do disagree. We do need disagreeable people and we do need agreeable people. However, genuine people will listen to each other and try and find some sort of middle ground, or agree to disagree at the very least. Narcissistic people won't do this. They want to win, and they want to win at all costs to you. If anyone has any thoughts on this video, please do add those into the comments. Thank you very much to all the returning subscribers, and your continued support with the channel is greatly appreciated. If you are new to the channel, I'm Elizabeth Shaw. This channel is all about narcissistic behaviour to give you more understanding of the people you might be dealing with within your life, how to handle yourself around those people if you cannot go no contact, and different methods to find what works for you to help you understand and overcome narcissistic and emotional abuse. If you do find the information helpful on the channel, then please do subscribe. If you are looking for further help and support in understanding and overcoming narcissistic and emotional abuse, I do have several online guides available, and those teachable links are in the video description. If you're looking for someone to speak to, I have partnered with BetterHelp, and their sponsored link is also in the video description. Go out there and create the day that you deserve, because you do deserve to have an amazing day. Bye.